This is Between the Brackets, a Mediawiki podcast, episode 4, March 20th, 2018. Hello and welcome to Between the Brackets. I'm Yaron Koren. My guest for this episode is Bernhard Krabina, whom I've known since 2009 or so. Bernhard lives in Vienna, Austria, and he's a researcher and consultant for KDZ, or the Center for Public Administration Research, an Austrian nonprofit that, according to its website, focuses on the modernization of public governance and management and e-government in Europe. He can be considered the wiki guy at KDZ, and more specifically, the Mediawiki guy. And he has been involved in the Mediawiki and semantic Mediawiki communities for a decade now. So, Bernhard, welcome to the program.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. It's interesting.
So can you tell me about KDZ in general, how big it is and what kind of projects it does?
Yeah, we are a small association actually founded by government institutions in Austria. We are 23 people and we are doing research, consulting and training for public sector administration that ranges from small municipalities to bigger cities, but also to regional governments and ministries. So, but we're really focusing on public sector.
Is the focus mostly in Austria, or is it other countries as well?
It's mostly in Austria. We've also done some EU projects, and there is besides Austria another focus on the Southeast European region. So we're doing projects, for example, in Kosovo, in Serbia, and in this Danube area, Southeast
Nice.
Danube area.
When did you get started at KDZ, and how did that happen?
I started in 2003. It actually happened a little bit by coincidence. I worked for the Federal Computing Department in Austria for a EU project before I moved to KDZ. There I got into contact, and this EU project was for 18 months, and then it finished, and then I was looking for a job, and they asked me, and I started. I actually never really thought into going into this public administration and public sector field, but now I'm here, and it's very interesting, I think.
So you didn't have a focus on government type work or
no, not at all. Not at all. Yeah.
How did you discover Mediawiki and think about using it for KDZ projects?
It started out, I think, in 2006 when we. I have to say, I also am around 20% of my work. I'm in charge of the IT infrastructure of KDZ. So, and there I started to look into Mediawiki as a tool to just simply document, our IT infrastructure stuff. And pretty early on, I think I also looked at what kind of extensions are around, and I stumbled upon semantic Mediawiki. I thought the concept very interesting. And I also used it a little bit for that. And the next big project actually was then to use it as a kind of an KDZ intranet solution. So we have a internal wiki where we document basically our projects with that. And it started out quite simple, and the next big leap was when I came across your extension, the semantic forms, now called page forms, and this really took it to the next level, and we're still using it very actively.
Cool, that's very good to hear. And so, when was the first? Outward facing? What and when was the first outward facing Mediawiki project that you guys did? Do you remember?
Yes, that was it was really based on our first experiences that we had internally. Our CEO had the idea of best practice examples that were published in a book regarding municipal cooperation in Austria. So there was a book that we did on what type of projects municipalities in Austria cooperate, and we said it's a pity that these projects are only in this book, because of course they get outdated. So we want to put it on the web. So there was the first discussions. Let's do it on the KDZ website, but of course nobody will actively change them or add further projects. So then there was a small concept done, and we decided to do it with Mediawiki, but not the regular wiki style, but really also with semantic Mediawiki and page forms, so that users simply fill out a form if they have new projects that they want to document, and it's still online. It's Verwaltungskooperation.at. So that's a German term for municipal cooperation. And I think it has some 400, 500 projects documented. So it's still online.
Yeah, I remember that wiki, and I remember we used it a lot as an example early on in presentations and so forth about the use
that's true.
of software. And there'll be a link to that on the podcast website for people who want to get to it. Along with all the other websites that get mentioned, assuming there are any more. So you're involved in the worlds of both open source software and open data, which are related in some way.
Yeah.
I want to talk about both, but first let's talk about open source software. How important is it that Mediawiki is open source in these government projects you're doing?
Well, for us, it's very important, because I don't think we would have used it otherwise, because it didn't start out like that. That we had a project calling for some software, and we would be the ones who suggest the software and buy the licenses and do the project with it. It started out more with being available there for free to use for our applications. And we had some ideas what to do with it, so we just could use it. We also have to say that not very many projects are really done by the public sector organizations, so they mostly rely on us to do it. So that's a little bit of a difference. That there is not this public sector organizations that are officially procuring the software or something like that. They're just telling us they are part of our projects or something like that.
Right. You're saying there's no room in the budget for software costs.
Yeah, in our budget, at least this would have. For example, the first project we just talked about, if we would have to pay a lot of money for that, we probably wouldn't have done it, because there is no business case behind it. It's just really making something that we collected for a book visible on the internet, and we didn't want to go for some specialized software that would cost us something.
Right. Have you seen over time more of a change in the approach of governments to open source software, either being more accepting or being more requiring of the usage of open source?
Well, I think there is really two aspects of open source software you really have to separate. I think there has been, or now in the media currently in Europe, there is a lot going on regarding how open source software does not work in the public sector organizations. The city of Munich is moving back now, and these things, but they are talking about open source on the desktop.
Yeah,
this is
they famously, it was very early on that they decided they were going to switch to Linux.
Yeah, that's true.
When was that?
And
it was
I don't know, but
sorry.
Something like that, yeah. And the city of Vienna also very early had their own Ubuntu distribution, and they also removed that. But if you look at other open source domains, for example, web related stuff, server related stuff. There's a lot of open source software in the public sector. It is just not as prominently discussed as the desktop applications. But in general, I would say, especially in Austria, there is a lot. The open source, I mean, the public sector organizations are really have a problem with vendor lock-in, especially with Microsoft products. Also on the server side, so open source solutions are not as widespread as I would like to have them. But yeah, I think other countries are more advanced there. Austria is a very small country, so we have small institutions with small IT staff. So it's understandable that they are not as that they don't have the possibilities to try out different things. Right. They want to be on the safe side, buy the licenses, and have their problems taken away by that, by paying the license fees.
Sure. Yeah. What countries are better, I guess, if you want to use that word, open source?
Well, we have a the European Union promotes open source a lot, and that there is a special website for open source in public sector. It used to be called OSOR, but now it's called, I think, joinup.eu. They have changed it around. I'm not so sure anymore. We have to research that. And if you look there, what news are provided, they come from Spain, they come from Italy, they come from France. But very seldomly there is open source news in public sector from Austria or Germany. So I think there are other countries that are more into that.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if Germany is in that list, just from what I've heard. Now, what about open data? Has there been any kind of high-level push to put government data online in Austria or the EU or other countries?
Yes. I mean, there has been a major push from the EU, and it's going on. The EU has implemented the European Data Portal to collect open data from the different member states. In Austria, we started, I think, in 2010. That was quite early. So we were the first German-speaking country that started an open data portal in Austria. But of course, UK was earlier than we and also some other countries. But from a Central European view, Austria was one of the leaders. And we have an Austria open data portal. So that's a success, but there has not been a lot of really political pressure. It was more the administrative side who said, well, yeah, it's a good idea. We're not hiding our data. Whatever we can publish, we will publish. And they were very fast on providing an open data portal. But in Austria, still what is lacking is the federal government level. So we just had a project last year for the federal chancellery in Austria, because we have around 12 or 13 ministries in Austria, and they had all in all 60 data sets published, which is of course not very much. And the last government in Austria had this project where they said, we want to have all data from the ministries out that is possible, and we want to have a screening on what kind of data could be made available. And so we identified more than 1,000 data sets that could potentially be opened, but they are not opened yet. So this is still something that is to do, and I don't know what the next government will do in this regard. So,
how much of a role do you see Mediawiki playing in publishing government data?
It doesn't have any role, I would say. Unfortunately, but I'm trying to promote this idea. I'm trying to promote the idea that What currently happens is the government agencies are looking for data that they can publish. There is some externally available open data portal, and if they find a data set, they will publish it there or publish the metadata about this data set on the open data portal, which is fine. But there is a process you have to undergo before you are so far to publish the data. You have to ask your departments, what data do you have? Who can I talk to about the data set? In what quality is it? What are the problems that we could face if we want to release it? And this internal process is not supported by any software. So I have experienced some agencies who send around Excel sheets from one department to the other. That can be done, of course, but this is where Mediawiki or especially Semantic Mediawiki can shine. If you provide a collaborative web-based solution where you have predefined data fields for what is the name of the data set, who is the contact person, how can I rate it according to certain criteria, then this is obviously a very good use case, and I call that open data cockpit. And I've tried to promote this idea, but up to now, not very many agencies, unfortunately, have taken that up. But yeah, we will see. I think it's still there's still time for improvement, also in this regard for the public sector agencies.
Do you feel like you're sort of a one-man marketing operation for this idea, or are there other people who are supporting it?
There are other people. I've had some interesting projects in Germany. Interestingly, so the city of Bonn is using this approach, and I have also have some regional municipality IT providers go into this direction, but it's not really being used live. This also has to do with the fact that the German open data metadata standard has changed, and it has just been changed last year, so it's quite new. So we have to adjust also this to the OGD cockpit. So yeah, there are some pilot projects, but it's not really rolled out yet.
What is the software that's usually used for open data? I know here in the US, Drupal and CCAN get mentioned a lot.
Yeah. Well, I would also say in Europe that CCAN is the standard for that. And it usually has some kind of front end to go with it. So it could be Drupal with CCAN. Also, I think the German Open Data Portal is using Liferay and CCAN. The Austrian Open Data Portal is using WordPress and CCAN. So the front end is different, but they're all open source software, so that's nice. And for the back end, very often CCAN is used. Yeah.
How do you see Mediawiki comparing to those two? Of course, the big thing is that it's editable and has a version history.
Yeah. Well, the idea of using Mediawiki, especially with Semantic Mediawiki for an open data portal, is for somebody like me who is into the topic, is very obvious. The thing is, I don't want to, I don't want to go into the competition about let's fight against the open source software CCAN, which is a great tool, and
Right.
let's try to promote Semantic Mediawiki as an open data portal, because what's the point? Semantic Mediawiki, I think, definitely could be used for an open data portal, especially there the semantic features come in very handy. Because you have open data metadata standards you want to support, and there's a lot of nice features for that. But that's not really the point. And on the other hand, CCAN has really a lot of interesting features, like preview of CSV files or whatever, that is not there in Semantic Mediawiki. What's interesting though is the public sector institutions, when they hear CCAN and then they read the requirements for CCAN, Python, and there's also some other requirements, they don't like it so much. They would rather see the PHP and MySQL and that. So they're used to that. They're not used to the more advanced requirements of Python, of CCAN. So this is also something where there would be an advantage for Mediawiki. There's even a project called DCAN that tries to integrate CCAN features in Drupal.
Huh.
So because many public sector organizations are using Drupal, and they don't want to have extra software sitting around on their servers. So that's also one interesting aspect.
Let's see. This is a very timely discussion that we're having because I know one of your areas of focus is the GDPR, or General Data Protection Regulation, which is a European Union regulation that was adopted in 2016 and is actually taking effect only about 2 months from now.
Yes.
I know it's been a major source of discussion for anyone that does business in Europe. Basically, if I can summarize it, as I understand it, there are going to be a whole bunch of requirements for anyone holding any sort of personal data about people living in the EU.
That's right.
To me, it sounds like a mess, and I can't imagine what enforcement will be like, but that's not my concern. But yeah, from what I understand, you've been involved in helping to ensure compliance with the GDPR using Mediawiki.
Yes.
So how does that work?
Yeah. Well, for this we have to know that in Germany things are quite different than in Austria. The difference is that the GDPR requires the organizations to keep what they call a record of processing activities. And the German data protection law already had this. So German organizations already know what that is and how to do that, and probably also what software to use for that. In other European countries like Austria, this concept is new. In Austria, we had the obligation to inform the data protection authority once what kind of company are we and what kind of personal data are we processing. And this was stored in the authority, and that was basically it. Now the GDPR is changing that to make it more like the German approach, where the companies now in Austria have to not inform the authority, but they have to keep their own records about their processing activities. They can basically do that with filling out Excel sheets or Word documents and even print it out as paper. But of course, they are free to also do that electronically. So you basically have to say, for example, we at KDZ are an NGO, and for example, we have a newsletter. For the newsletter, people submit their private data. We store their first name, their last name, and their email address. And we do that with on the KDZ website that is hosted in a German hosting company. So for example, this would be an example for a record of processing activities, and I have to document this, and if somebody complains about me or to the data protection authority, they can come to me and say, show me your documentation, what are you doing with the personal data, and I have to have that ready. Right. So this is really the big change that many countries face. The Germans not so much, because they already had that. So And this is why I think Mediawiki again comes in pretty handy, because it's again a documentation task inside your organization that is not only done by one or two persons, but maybe if you have bigger organizations with many departments, I don't know what the marketing department does for where they use private data or personal data. So they have to document that internally so that I have that ready in case I need it. So this is also what we are doing. We are providing a semantic Mediawiki configuration targeted for this documentation purposes of the general data protection regulation.
So are you storing information per record, or is it more a general kind of thing, like to get information on this data set, go here?
Yes, it's really a categories of processing activities more. So, for example, the newsletter, I'm, as I've mentioned, storing that I have the newsletter and what kind of data I'm storing, and this has to be documented. And also, for example, if there is a data breach, that, for example, if our website is hacked. And there is the potential that private data or personal data was stolen or manipulated. I have to document this issue, and if it's severe, I have to report to the authority. And if it's not severe, if it's some minor thing that was not a big deal, I have to at least document that. So there is a lot of documentation going on that we have to do now inside the organizations. And this is where semantic Mediawiki can be used.
Very interesting. So I didn't. So is it all going to be publicly accessible? Is it okay?
No,
I see.
No,
it's for your internal record keeping and auditing. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Are there any other sort of I guess ideally public or high-profile MediaWiki-based projects you've been involved in at KDZ?
Yes, the largest project that we did is the Vienna History Wiki. It was done for the city of Vienna for several departments. They had a German language encyclopedia about the history of Vienna in print. It was old, and as Wikipedia has, I think, contributed to the death of encyclopedias. The same happened to the Vienna encyclopedia. No one had the time or the interest to update this. But the city of Vienna didn't want to have this information lost, this knowledge about historical places, historical persons, and all that. So they wanted to do that on the web, and of course the best software for having encyclopedic information on the web is Mediawiki. So and as I was already as I had already done a lot of projects in this regard, I was happy enough to get this job to provide the structures for the Vienna History Wiki. It is hosted in the city IT, but I did the technical implementation, setting up all the structures, all the properties, and all that.
What's the scope of it? Do you know? I mean, like the number of pages and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Well, we started out. I think I have to look it up actually. With I think 20,000 entries, because they really were copy and pasted out from the printed publication. So the printed publication, they didn't have it electronically. They had to scan it in and OCR the thing, and it couldn't be imported automatically due to various reasons. So they had to per copy and paste paste the content to the wiki pages. And now we have more than 40,000 wiki pages. Wow. And it's I think as much visited as the Vienna as the website of the city of Vienna. Wow. So it's really a high traffic wiki, I think. and it's very successful. Not so many people not so many citizens, sorry, are actively contributing. So these numbers could be higher, but it's very actively used by several departments also from the city of Vienna who have to do with historical facts, and yeah, it's very actively used.
Wow, oh, very nice. And we'll have a link to that too. Um,
Mm-hmm.
um, it's German language, or okay,
Yeah, yeah.
So you've been involved. You've been involved professionally, I guess, with Mediawiki for over 10 years now.
Yes, yes,
Um,
that's true.
do you have any? This is a very general sort of question. I'm not sure if I would have a good instant answer to it. But do you have any thoughts on how Mediawiki could be improved? Whether it's semantic Mediawiki features or anything else. Especially things that come up when you're trying to pitch Mediawiki to
Yeah,
governments and so forth.
yeah. Well, I think one of the main limitations is that the software MediaWiki itself is really targeted and driven by the use for Wikipedia.
Sure.
I think there are at least two initiatives who like to address that. One, I think, was started by you, and the other one is this MediaWiki stakeholders group that tries to just raise their voice and say, well, there's a lot of use for MediaWiki for very different applications and topics than Wikipedia itself. So please, hear our voice. And of course, also due to this reason, there's not a lot of marketing. If you look at other open source projects, they're doing a lot of marketing, because if you're working for WordPress or Drupal, you are clear that you have great open source software. You want to promote the use of it. And nobody really wants to promote the use of MediaWiki for other applications. So that's a little bit the problem. Or the Mozilla Foundation is promoting Firefox as the standard browser.
Right.
The Document Foundation is promoting the use of LibreOffice. So, but there is no really association or foundation that is promoting the use of MediaWiki for all sorts of applications. So that's a little bit, I think, the problem. But it also is an advantage, because I keep telling customers, look, if KDZ is I don't know, shutting down, no longer doing this stuff or whatever, you can first also find other people who can take up the work. And I mean, I can really hardly imagine. I can imagine a world without Drupal or without even WordPress, because we have seen content management systems come and go. But to imagine a world without Wikipedia, I'm not so sure if that is ever going to happen. So if you base your internal knowledge management database or whatever you do on MediaWiki, I think you have a very high probability that even in 10 years there will be your software around. So that's, I think, an asset as well.
Sure, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, yeah, Wikipedia does. You can't really put a price tag on the marketing that of MediaWiki that Wikipedia does just by its existence.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, but I definitely agree with you on the need for more marketing. I mean, just the website of MediaWiki itself is kind of embarrassing.
Yeah.
And you brought up some interesting things that would probably that I hope to cover actually in future episodes.
Mm-hmm.
But
And I mean, for the from the technical
yeah, right,
point of view,
right.
I think what is really also needed, and I've seen that in other open source applications like Drupal or like I think WordPress also has it, is a kind of an extension manager. I mean, there are so many extensions around in these open source projects, and the others can manage that. You just, as an administrator, click on install this, install this, install this, and it just happens. And you then have to do the configuration work. But in Mediawiki, every extension has to be manually installed or whatever. So I think this really should be addressed from a technical point of view.
Very good. So finally, it turns out you're a musician and music lover, and you play.
Oh yeah,
What instruments do you play? Just is it guitar?
guitar, yeah, guitar.
And you're in a band right now?
Yeah, my band is called Patchwork FM. We are a pop band. We're doing our own original material, and we're working on our second CD now. So I don't know if it's going to be finished this year. We're taking a long time, but I at least hope to have maybe the first single out this year. So we will see.
Oh, that's fantastic. What kind of music are you into in general?
In general, I listen a lot to pop music, obviously, and also rock music. A little bit of jazz. When you study an instrument, you come around jazz. Of course, I like fusion. Yeah, so these are my genres.
Oh, cool. Um, Pat Metheny?
Oh yeah.
Oh, cool. Yeah, I was just listening to him. Anyway, that's irrelevant.
Uh,
Cool. Yeah, we'll have a link to your band and music. That's really exciting. And you guys play around in Vienna?
Yes. We currently we have stopped playing a little bit in order to make sure that we finish our CD, but we will have some gigs, and I hope next year when we release the CD, we will be playing live more then.
Very good. That concludes the podcast. Thank you very much.
Okay. Yeah, thank you for having me. It was fun.
This has been Between the Brackets. I want to again thank my guest, Bernhard Krabina. See you next time.